Welcome to The Executive Appeal, the show for CEOs of early 8-figure companies who feel like the business only moves when they push. If you're running a $10 to $25 million company and every big decision still rolls up to you, your leaders are smart but misaligned, trust is thinner than you'd like, and you're tired of being the hero that keeps everything moving, this is the room for you. I'm your host, Alex D. Tremble, CEO of GPS Leadership Solutions. I help CEOs see exactly where their own leadership is bottlenecking speed and trust, and then install one clear leadership operating system so their executives take real ownership and the business can run fast without them in every fire. Each episode of this podcast has 2 parts. First, we spotlight the guest, their story, what they've built, how they think about leading their people. Then we get honest about what's still hard at the top, where things slow down, where trust and ownership break down, and what they're doing to fix it. No theory, just what actually worked in the room when the cameras were off. Now, let's meet today's guest. Janis, can I tell you how I have been looking forward to this conversation since the last time you and I spoke? And honestly, I'll just say, like, it wasn't even the last time you and I spoke, like, verbally. It was the last time you and I was texting back and forth. And I'm like, see, look, this is why we got to do this.
Exactly. I appreciate that. I do.
Are you, honestly, where I'd love to start off is it's easy to see your name. Your title, people can see that on
Mhm,
LinkedIn,
mhm.
founder of First Not Only. You've done some amazing things, started VP, SVP, and
Yeah.
you've been in some amazing roles. I'd love to understand, aside from the title, if I asked you, who are you, what would you respond?
It's a good question. I kind of water that down in a simple way to maybe 5 or 6 different things. One, I am an Atlanta native, born and raised. My mother's family hails from Detroit, Michigan, so I have a lot of that in my blood. And my father hails from Augusta, Georgia. So I'm a Southern gal through and through with some Midwestern sprinkles within me. I am naturally a cheerleader. I love to see people win in all facets of life. I'm a Sagittarius, which says a lot of things. Everything you've read, it's likely true. All the things they say about the zodiac is likely true about me. I am curious. I am methodical, and I think I'm pretty freaking strategic. I know my training is in strategy, but I truly am a strategic person. I do believe like doing things right versus right now. So I'm a very strategic person. I'm a lover of R&B music. And I have to say, I love the industry that I've been in for the last 17 to 18 years, which is advertising. I absolutely love it. It's a tough industry. Do not get me wrong. But I believe that it really caused me to hone in on my purpose, who I am in life, to be able to even answer this question, to be rooted and grounded in who I am and to be proud of that. And I think a lot of that came through some of the struggles that happened within advertising. So I'll wait for that section of the conversation. But all in all, I would say that's who I am. I'm an HBCU grad. Shout out to Clark Atlanta University. Um, I always say I don't know if I found Clark Atlanta or if they found me, because our motto is find a way or make one. And I've been doing that ever since.
That's that's awesome, because where I want to take the conversation actually goes in many different directions. But what you just ended up saying, find a way or make one.
Yeah.
When I thought about the first question, I want to just ask you and just kind of understand, like, what does a big win in advertising look like? I want to ask you that question while couching it in the, did you have to find a way or make one, or was it just handed to you? Like, what are you most proud of that you accomplished in the advertising industry thus far?
That's a great question. I would say The biggest win in advertising, I'm going to talk in general and then I'll speak of myself, but in general is winning a Cannes Lion, or being written up about in Ad Week or Ad Age, or being a part of a Super Bowl spot. We know Super Bowl is really advertising Super Bowl, like seriously, right? That's where
Yeah,
millions of
yeah.
people are watching. So those two things I would say in general, those ways, your awards, your recognition, and all of that. I would have to say my big win is when I created the inclusion strategy at the agency in which I was, which was 22 Squared, here in Atlanta, Georgia, and Trade School, which is our sister company as well. Two agencies here in Atlanta. I think the biggest win was being able to help cultivate the culture in a further way. I will say 22 Square, when I got hired in 2013, already had a good culture, a great culture at that. I think it was something that they really hung their hat on. I think they did a lot of things well and did a lot of things right. And I would be honest to say that that kind of set the foundation. But as a strategist, I found a few gaps. Strategists, we're always, we're trained to find a few gaps, and how can we improve? I'm a solutions oriented person. I don't mind, finding the issue. I think we can all find the problems, but I think there are very few of us who are willing to either burn it down and build it back up, or just fill those gaps. And I'm on the latter. I like to burn things down, build them up, or fill those gaps. And when I thought about what inclusion strategy could look like at the agency, I did envision it as an HR role, because I didn't come from that side of the house. My degree is in journalism. So I'm a person who believes that words mean things. I lament over words, all of my communications, the way that I speak, the things that I say. So I needed it to kind of come show up in a different way within the agency. And to be quite honest with you, I needed it to show up in the work more than anything, in the strategy, in the creative, in what people see more than anything. However, we had to make sure that I partnered with the HR team, because you're not going to get to inclusive outputs with homogenous inputs. So I had to work with HR for them to understand this is what an inclusive table looks like. What talent pools are we recruiting from? Are we just going to certain schools, or do it's specifically in Atlanta? We have 4 HBCUs here. We have Georgia Tech, we have Georgia State. So we have a plethora of diversity within this city, period. So what are we doing to make sure that we are engendering, and really lifting those communities up and bringing them into advertising as well, so that we can truly have inclusive outputs and speak to mass audiences, which is what our clients charge us to do, and what they ask of us to do and pay us millions of dollars to do. So my proudest moment is being able to work with all of senior level executives at that time. I wasn't in the C-suite just yet at that point. Obviously, very nervous. But my proudest moment is being able to coach them through and walk them through what this looks like, what inclusive output looks like, what an inclusive environment looks like, and to see how the agency looks today and see how they show up, not just looks, because that can be, diversity can be a vanity metric, but how they show up and how they act, the work that we produce, is probably the thing that I really like hang my hat on for sure.
You know, I love how you talk about this, and you can hear the passion in your voice. Um, and at the same time, I know that was likely not easy.
Mm-mm.
Um, we work with a lot of CEOs now, and it, what I'll tell you is it is not generally easy. It's not, you called out not being in the suite when you started pushing those efforts.
Mhm.
Um, Leading, quote unquote, leading up is
Mhm.
not always easy. And many times it can be very difficult and fraught with political turmoil, because if you do the wrong way, you could be out the door, right? But in order to be successful, you have to know how to lead up. So I'd love to hear, like, how did you learn that skill, and like, what are some of those best practices on helping people, let's say, helping people more, quote unquote, senior to you,
Yeah.
make the right decision and keep themselves out of trouble too.
Absolutely. I love that. I identified. So one of the things, again, there was probably a weekend that I sat with myself and again wrote out my talk track. Like, again, I'm a writer, so I'm going to write it out, erase things, and write it again. What words should I use?
Yeah.
And to really boil it down in its simplest terms, I could have walked in the office and said, all of this is so racist here. Like, I don't like it here. And, this is what people are struggling with. And this is what Black people and people on the margins are struggling with here. But what I noticed was, one, the ad industry as a whole has an inclusion problem, okay, in a major way. It is quite obvious and quite intentionally gate kept. But what I struggled with when I see that it's gate kept is it's often the cultures on the margins that are the ones being held on high when it comes to advertising. So for me, that became a rallying cry of, well, then we all should be at these tables and having these conversations. And I'll tell you the really hard part was being, I think at this time I might have been a media director at this time working on an account and of a big retailer. And I really had to think about, how do I go in here and talk to maybe 5 or 6 white men and women who were probably in their 60s or somewhere along the lines, and not because they were scary. I'm not going to say that. I am going to say my training and living in America for as long as I have, it can be scary because of things that we see and the things that we know. So I didn't know how that was going to go. So I needed to use my words wisely because I really didn't want to go in there and blow up the room. I wanted to level the playing field and I really needed them to hear me. So the words I chose to use, instead of like, this place is racist, I chose to say, there's some institutional thinking here that I think we should talk about. And from there, I didn't take the air out of the room. They're listening to what I'm saying at this point, and they're curious at this point. What do you mean? What does that mean? So one of the things I explained to them, and this was again over a series of over an hour, but this conversation continued to happen. That was my first kind of deal with them of, this is not going to be a one and done conversation. I think we should set up weekly meetings and let's exchange numbers so we can have this conversation all the time. And one of the things I shared with them was the gaps that we have in our culture within the agency really boil down to people not being seen, heard, and promoted. One of the things I learned, I was working on a Super Bowl spot at the time, and I said, I'm in here working God knows how long, and I'm not able to pay my Georgia Power bill. That I don't know how the two, that shouldn't make sense, right? And again, what that was a story of mine, and that was a story of many. So from there, I said, when you all think of promoting someone, you only see us as worker bees. So you don't necessarily see us as people who sit at the tables with you all and occupy those tables. And I said, before you become afraid, I'm asking for table extension, not for any of you to move away from the table. I'm actually asking you to help us pull up a chair. And that's when the light bulb went off. And my CEO at the time became a really great partner to me. I cannot sing his praises enough. He became such a partner. It actually didn't, this proverbial table that we talk about, I feel like he found a runway and he just kind of like cleared it and was just like, all right, take off. He was a good partner. We understood that he's likely not going to teach me about inclusion or the things that we struggle with. He's never been a Black man. He's never been a Black woman. He's never been a gay person. Like, he's never been any of those things, but he taught me leadership. I taught him what it felt like to be in our shoes. So we had such a symbolic relationship that was so, it was such a nice cycle of me learning how to level up as a leader. And it was hard. You just said it, Alex. It's funny you said that, because I don't know if I shared this with you in our first one, but the first thing I said was, when it was time when he wanted me to take on this role full time, I was a media director. And I'm like, if I mess up in 6 months, you're going to fire me. I know how this goes. I know what LinkedIn is. You see thanks for the promotion. Yeah. And the next thing you know, 6 months later, open to work. And I'm like, I don't trust it just yet. And he said, okay. I said, so can we move at my pace? And he fought me on it a little bit, but we ended up moving at my pace, because I want to see when you're upset with me. Because at this time, I coined this phrase, and I don't think this was on purpose, but I coined this phrase that I was the barometer Black girl. Whatever Janis was, they expected every Black person in that room to be just that. So I had to teach them, everybody's not going to be Janis. We're going to have introverts. We're going to have, so all of these things that we talked about. But what I needed him to see, because they had loved Janis so much, I needed to see I need you to see me when I make a mistake, when I don't know, when I've messed something up. I needed to see how they showed up then as well. So we took our time with this work, and that was very hard to do, because those are some tough conversations we had to have and some mirrors we had to hold up.
you and I are like in so many different ways, especially when you talk about the importance of words. Words matter. And man, you share so much. There's so many different directions I want to go.
Sorry.
But yeah, stop being awesome. Um, so I the first thought, and I hope I can get to the second one without forgetting it. The first thought is you remind me when I was younger, when I was a young whippersnapper. Um, Back in 1870. No, sorry.
Right.
I I remember. So again, I oversaw executive leadership development for Department of the Interior at the time, and three government-wide executive leadership development programs. And so consistently around the most influential executives in the federal government as well as private sector, because of my position, I had access to a lot of people because a lot of people wanted access to me to have access to the executives. So
Yeah.
that was how I started my career. And I was in those rooms, in those meetings. I remember one time I saw these guys walking around the building. They were just looking, I think, like super cool. And so
Mhm.
I'm like, I want to look cool too. So one day I came to work. I had my black dress shoes on, my black socks. I had the black. Some of y'all might have heard the story before. The black pants. I had the black shirt, black suit jacket with the red tie and some red suspenders, and a black hat with a little red on it. And I was like, I'm looking slick. And the executive I reported to was like, I need to talk to you. And so there's a white woman, goodness, but she said, Alex, I think you need to talk to Joe. And so Joe was this black dude, very well respected executive. He go talk to him. So I went, hey, what? She told me to go talk to you. He's like, bruh. He didn't say bruh, but he was just like, Alex, you're retired right now. Like, you know the rooms you're in. I'm like, but what? But they're wearing it. Why can't I wear it? And he said, you can do whatever you want to do.
Mhm.
The reality is that when you walk into a room, there are
Mhm.
so many hurdles people have
Mhm.
to overcome just to hear what you're saying.
Mhm.
Your
Amen.
clothes, your hair, your weight, your sex, your gender, like, and literally all you're doing is adding in one more hurdle. And
Amen.
if you're okay with that, cool. But just realize it. And that was like the impetus of me being much more intentional with how I present myself, because again, what I'm saying is really important. I want as few hurdle as possible. So I said to
Yes.
say, our words are really important. And so I loved how you entered into that conversation without, you said, blowing up the room, but creating a space where they're still at least open enough to hear the next word, the next sentence, versus
Yes.
saying, y'all messing up, get out of here.
Right.
And there's different perspectives on this. What made you what made you take that angle, I guess?
It's, I even say this to my mentees. I think it's just in me. I wish I could explain it. I'm going to go down the spiritual path. I do believe this is my life's purpose and my life's work. So I believe that God created me with a certain capacity to be able to think through all of these things. But I also think my maturity level at 28 years old, we wouldn't have been able to have this conversation. Now, where I won't say my age, but right now we are able to have this conversation
At 29.
because
Got it.
right at 29, just a year later, because my maturity level has grown. I've seen a lot, and I also know that through conversation and reading crucial conversations, all of these things. I will say that book is very helpful. So as a resource, Crucial Conversations is such an amazing book when it comes to having these types of convos. So if that's a good answer, but I think what I realize is, how do I get them to the action? So, how do I make sure that they stay engaged and stay involved so that we can get to the action? And I honestly think a lot of that probably comes from the journalism training that I had back in school. And some of that, I do think some of it is like, okay, you're born with it, some of it's innate. But I do think when you are learning to interview people and it's a tough or contentious interview and there are some tensions that have risen, we have techniques that we have to use that either guide the conversation back into the positive, level set the conversation, or get to the action. Because at this point, we know the conversation needs to be over, right? So I think some of that likely helped. But I knew there was so much that we had to get done. I really couldn't afford to sweat the small things. Something I've learned over the years: keep the main thing the main thing. This was the major
Mm,
leagues. I was having this conversation with some of my colleagues at the time who were on the margins, not necessarily just Black, but women, everything. And they're like, we need to say this. And they had a whole list, a plethora of, we got to do this. And I said, okay, first of all, let's prioritize. And two, let's think of how we can phase this out. But I knew we needed to have a plan and a strategy for them to react to, for them to also sink their teeth in and show up as the leaders we needed them to as well. So, really, I had to major in the major leagues and I had to leave the minor leagues where they are. And so keeping the main thing the thing, what is our ultimate goal in that first meeting? And that ultimate goal in the first meeting was to get that handshake, to understand that we're in partnership. This is going to take some time. Let's go. That's all I needed in that moment.
I love it. I love it. Keep the main thing the main thing.
Mhm.
And I would like to really quickly follow up with you've talked about the difficulty and the potential challenge of managing up, um, and you've been an executive vice president, you've been a chief, like
Yeah.
you're a C-suite leader in a significant organization doing millions and millions and millions of dollars a year, moving stuff, right? Have you, as has anyone who reported to you ever had to manage up on you? And how did that feel? Did you ever notice, hey, they're managing me? Like, what was that like?
It's actually what I respect. Even my director of operations at first, not only her name's Aisha, she manages up to me, and I know when they're managing me, and I love it actually, if I'm being very, very honest, because one thing I think that anyone who works with me, when they see this, they will agree. I am a visionary and I float. You can call me a balloon. I see the forest. I need people around me who are going to see the tree.
Yeah.
So I am one of those people when I see the island and if I see, the destination and we're still sitting back on the sand, I know every which way to chart that path. I know we're going to get there, but I need people around me who are like, all right, Janice, do we have the oar? Do we even have the boat? Does the boat have gas in it? Like all of these things.
Mhm.
So I love when I'm like, well, hold on. When someone is saying, well, hold on, Janice, have we thought about this and have we thought about that? I actually look for people on my team who are resourceful in that way because I know that I need it. And something that a leader, you have to know where you lack and where you fall down. And I definitely, not in all the details, but I know I'm a visionary to my core and I'm a cheerleader to my core. We will get there. I will inspire you to no end. And again, I'm a balloon, but I need someone to be a string who's like, well, hold on, balloon. Like, hold on. Right here. I need some grounding a little bit because I get excited. So I love when I get a real conversation and when someone says, well, I think we're not thinking about this the correct way. I love it. I absolutely love it. I welcome it. I appreciate it. And to be quite honest with you, I respect it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. If you're a CEO in that early 8-figure range, quick question. Do you ever feel like you have a good team, good people, but things still slow down unless you get involved? That's usually not a bad team problem. It's a you as a bottleneck problem. And most CEOs don't see it clearly until it's already choking speed, ownership, and execution. So I put together a quick tool called the 5 CEO Bottlenecks Slowing Your $10 to $25 million company. In about 10 minutes, it shows you where you're personally slowing the business down across strategic clarity, decision speed, delegation, trust, and communication, and which one bottleneck to fix first over the next 90 days. If you're watching on YouTube, scan the QR code on the screen or go to gpsleadership.org/scorecard. That's gpsleadership.com/scorecard. If you're on LinkedIn or on Instagram, just comment scorecard below and my team will DM you the link. Once you've scored yourself, you have the option to book a free 15-minute executive leadership diagnostic call with me. We'll walk through your results, highlight where you're most likely the bottleneck, and tell you straight whether a deeper Executive 360 snapshot makes sense for you right now. So if you suspect you might be the ceiling on speed and ownership, comment scorecard or head to gpsleadership.org/scorecard and start there. See ya. So we've been talking about teams and leading teams. And I love the praise. I love the praise that you have for your team, your the current team you're with. Um, and I'm sure things are probably still hard at times.
Mhm.
I'd love to hear, have you ever been in a situation leading a team and felt like maybe you were the bottleneck, people kept coming to you, or even did you ever get a sense that there's some misalignment? Um, how did you first notice it? How did you become aware of it? And then two, what did you do about it?
I think the bottleneck piece is key because I did notice specifically on my as I was, ascending in my role and in my career, I did notice that people didn't move unless I said so. And I had to ask myself, is am I doing this? Because I like for people to be free. I believe in there's nothing you can do. If you go ahead and go off and create a solution or come up with a plan and then come back to me for me to react to it and let's workshop it together, there's nothing you can do that's going to tank this whole thing. I promise. Just think and go be. And I was wondering, like, am I expressing that enough? Am I taking over? Because I am a big personality. I do more than control the temperature in the room. I tend to be the barometer in the room. And I know this of myself, right? I know this now. And through, I think, these moments of I could be 5 minutes late to a call because another call ran over and not one person has started the call yet. And I said, no, 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 you could do that. You have permission, So making sure once I realized that, I did start to ask my team questions. Am I in the way? I don't mind asking that question at all because I'm happy to get out of the way. Trust me, I could sleep better. But am I in the way? And is there anything that I can do to help you succeed in whatever project that you're working on? How can I help? And I think from that moment, that's when I realized that I have to start giving permission as a leader because in many cases, not just me, I think in many cases as leaders, we know that people respect us to no end, right? I would hope that most leaders are respected. But for me, myself, I know that I'm respected in so many ways. And no one wants to mess up what I've built, or they don't want to, step on a landmine or something like that. And I notice and I realize I have to give permission. And sometimes that's just as small as, hey, you take this on, and then you can, create whatever document, let's collaborate on it. You started, you take lead on it, and then we can come back and we can workshop it together. I now know that I have to say those things and often give permission, because I will say one of the things I had to learn for a very long time as I was moving into executive leadership was I'm a very self-sufficient person. And that's for many reasons. That could be because I'm a Sag, that could be because of child, who knows, right? I just am like I thrive on an island. I have to remind myself that no man is an island. So I have to remind myself of community and village and also asking for help. Um, this might be the first year that I've ever been able to like say, okay, y'all, can somebody help me with dot dot dot? I'm learning that as I grow and as I go, and specifically in this next chapter in my life, good grief, I have to ask for it. So I think in that moment, letting my guard down and showing people there's nothing you can do that's going to tank or mess up anything. And if you do make a mistake, welcome to the club. We'll be all right. Just at least start.
You know, yeah, y'all know I'm a storyteller.
Mhm.
So I'm sorry. So, story time.
I love it.
My I I was brought in as the chief of within an organization. I want to be too specific. I was brought in as one of the chiefs, and that chief was in a situation where they felt like they were in a bubble
Mm.
and they weren't getting everything. And they've been watching me for a long time. They saw how I worked in
Mm.
the other organizations I've been working with, and they're like, I need someone like Alex here. So they brought me in intentionally and consistently. Alex, I need you to tell me what's really going on. Give it to me straight. Give it to me straight. And I remember for the first like maybe 5 6 months, maybe 5 months, I was giving it to the straight, and I actually kept that person out of a few legal issues because they
Oh,
didn't
nice.
realize they were going in a very not great situation. I was like, hey, you probably don't want to do that. and and about month like 7 or 8, I started feeling something really weird. And I'm like, this is odd. Like the phone isn't always picking up when I call, and
Mm.
emails always get responded. And I'm like, well, it can be because I'm being honest, because they kept telling me
Yeah.
to be honest.
Right.
And so let me try this. Let me pull back and maybe not say something about the next time this person says something crazy. And you know what? Like a month after that, after I pulled back, everything was gravy again. And so I said to
Mhm.
say, like, we have to there's this you talk about is so complex because there are the things that in this leader's situation, maybe they were unconsciously doing it, right? Maybe
Mhm.
they're unconsciously upset with me because I did share and push back on certain things that they wanted to do that they were upset. So they started, and so that taught me what it did. It taught me to not be completely honest with them if I wanted to still be employed there, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then you have the situation with a me who maybe worked in this situation goes somewhere else, and the leader's like, "Hey, I want you to be honest with me," and the new person's like, "I don't know. Last time I did this, I got myself
Right.
in trouble." So like, there's so many variables that come into play when you're trying to, like you said, create that open relationship where they feel comfortable. But it's hard.
Yeah.
Have you, aside from like I said, repeatedly giving permission, like what else do you think someone could do if their team again they have high performers, they have smart, great people, but you can tell they're a bit gun shy.
Listen, be curious about your team members and listen to what they're saying. I'm a listener. I believe a big part of, and it's not even I believe, we know that a big part of a conversation is listening, not just talking. Learn about your team, be curious. I think a lot of times we think that when we're in our one on ones, I think we get those wrong. I think we get one on ones wrong in so many ways, and I actually think it's on both ends. The one who is the manager and the one who's being managed. I think we get them wrong. I think we tend to go in it there with the status spreadsheet. I know sometimes if we're in a pitch, I know sometimes that's what it calls for. But a lot of
Mhm.
times, I think we don't use that time to really get to know one another. And I don't mean, what did you do this weekend? I actually don't mean that. I mean in ways of, is there anything that you need from me? What's causing any hiccups that maybe what's happening outside of work? You don't have to tell me anything, or is there something happening outside of work that could cause any hiccups at work? I need to show that I'm
Mhm.
open. Because then that allows them to open up. I think the biggest thing that any executive leader has to understand is self-awareness. I think if you don't have self-awareness, I would have to be clear that it's quite impossible. You may think you're leading, but it's quite impossible to be a leader or an executive leader without self-awareness first. That doesn't mean that everything has to be perfect. You should be aware of things, and you should welcome people to share whatever feedback they may have of you as well. I think that's how I've gotten here, right? It's been a two-way street. And I think a lot of times with our one-on-ones, the manager is either not having real conversations, or it's just kind of surface level. And the one who's being managed, they don't realize this is their time. If it's your one on one, this is your time for me. I should be the listener. You should be the lead in this moment. So I do think it's very much so beyond giving the permission. You have to show yourself as an empathetic leader. Dare I say it, because I know that word is all over LinkedIn right now and nobody has a true definition for it. But I believe the true definition is what your definition is. If you are being true to yourself and you're being true to your team, if you're a listener, then you are an empathetic leader, and at least you're working on it. So like I said, I just kind of, to sum it up, I just really think beyond permission, you have to be open. You have to be open to the good. You have to be open to the bad. You have to be open to the mistakes. You also have to be a guide. You don't necessarily always have to be a director. What if you're a guide?
Mhm.
My goal is to get people in my seat. I don't want to work forever. You know what I'm saying? So my goal is to get people in this seat. So I have to be a guide, and I have to guide them that way. So we have to, in some ways, have some of the toughest conversations. Um, but the goal is to make sure that we all come out either a better leader, a better thinker, a better listener, a better employee, better manager, whatever the case may be. We can't shy away from those crucial conversations.
I'm going to completely butcher Neil deGrasse Tyson's comment and or quote on this. But I still in my because I know it. I heard him say it. For me, is I keep coming back to it all the time. He says something like, "You have to know enough about whatever topic. The trick to life is to know enough about a topic to feel confident,
Exactly.
but also not know enough and that you may not know everything. Is
Absolutely.
like there's this balance, right?
That's a
And
leader.
I, there's this. We all know that the more it is quote like the more you know, the more you know you don't know, right? Because when you start researching, doing
Correct.
research, education in anything, you realize, oh my God, there's so much more than what I thought there was.
Absolutely.
So every time you dig more, there's more information, and so there's this idea that there's an idea that hopefully we are all everyone who's listening is in a place where they're saying, yeah, you know what, I'm confident I
Mhm.
do know something, but I'm also confident that I don't know everything.
Yes.
And that's one thing I'm consistently reminded of when we work with our clients is I can't tell you how often our clients will come to us and be like, hey, look, we need to do A, B, and C. We're having this issue in the organization. That's the problem. And I'm like, well, how about let's do an assessment first. Because everything
Mhm.
we do, we first do an assessment.
Absolutely.
And they're like, well, yeah, but if we can skip that, I already know where the problem is. And I'm like, yeah, let's still do this anyways.
Mhm.
And I had recently someone I was working with, a CEO of a company, great, awesome person, awesome, absolutely wonderful. And we did our the 14-day executive leadership diagnostic. It's a really quick diagnostic just to understand the perceptions of those individuals around them for this leader. And results came back. No one felt they could speak honestly with this leader. And they're like, what? What do you mean?
Yep.
Look again. It doesn't mean that it's what a quote truth that they're sharing, but they are sharing their perspective, which is their
Right.
truth, and their truth impacts how they interact with you. And
Absolutely.
so now we can address this. But to your point, it's just like we have, as leaders, I think we need to be proactively looking at consistently um, performing some sort of self audit,
Agreed.
because the reality is like even if I ask my staff all the time, I'm still the executive. I'm still the CEO.
Yes.
There, the risk of getting of peeing someone off and losing a job is fairly high. So people
Yes.
tend to. So yeah, to your point, just and everyone listening, even if you think things are great right now,
Yes.
I
Yes.
still encourage an external, outside,
Always.
some sort of diagnostic versus oh wait, the annual all employee survey. It's not the same thing.
It's not the same. And even as I'm embarking on this journey of entrepreneurship, so hard for me. I'm such a corporate girl to my heart. But and I when I say embarking on this journey, today is literally day one. So you're catching me like literally at day one. And I am learning, I learned this, as an executive leader, but to know when to say you don't know and to be curious, to continue to learn. Something I learned from Simon Sinek is the best leaders do say, I don't know. And we're in this together. We're going to figure this thing out, right? And I know that I have the brunt of figuring it out the most. I'm the CEO. Got it. I'm the founder. I get it. But I also have learned through previous leadership from other leaders. One of the things that one of my previous leaders, he used to always have a town hall. And something I learned from him, the reason for that is when you're building something or when you're sustaining something, you have to make sure everyone understands what are the goals, what's the mission, what's the vision, what are we all getting behind? And it also gets you in front of them. You can give updates on accounts that you won and accounts that you may have lost and all of the work things, but it's really a rallying cry. It's really a rally, if you will,
Yeah.
of we're still in this together, right? It's still a check-in moment. So as I'm learning how to lead First Not Only Network as the CEO and founder, I'm learning, I do have to ask those questions. I now have an advisory board, so that it's not just me in the room throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I also get to hear opinions and thoughts and how we can tweak and get better and all of those things. So I 100% agree with you on that it has to be a two-way street for all of us, especially as leaders. Just because you're a leader does not mean the learning stops or you're the end all be all, because that is far from the truth.
I know we gotta jump off. You gotta go make some calls, lock down some deals, support some communities. Can I, as we wrap up, I'd love to hear, is there anything you want to share with the audience as we close up today?
Yes, well, one, thank you so much for having me. I have to say that this has been a lovely conversation, which I figured it would be because of our first conversation, right? And even our text messages. But what I would leave everyone with as the founder of First Not Only Network, which is a network of women of color in the advertising, comms, marketing, PR space. It started that way. And we are in Atlanta, Georgia. However, we have opened up the walls to women of color in any professional setting to come to our events. And one of the things that I've learned, we are now sitting at about 360 women online. And probably we have quarterly events and we probably have between 90 and 100, I would say 80 and 100 women at our IRL events every quarter. One of the things that I noticed when you talk about a gap, this was supposed to be a brunch. And I say this to you because as a day one entrepreneur, you couldn't have told me this 2 years ago when First Not Only, the acronym is FNON. When FNON started in July of 24, it was supposed to be a brunch. And I noticed that I was a nucleus, and I noticed that everyone was like, well, you should talk to Janis. You should meet Janis. You should meet Janis. Well, Janis was getting tired because I was having a series of one-on-one conversations. So I said, let me just get them all in one room and see how that goes. 80 women showed up to that first event. And I say that to say community and village is clearly a need right now. I not only did I think it was going to be a 20-person brunch, I also thought it was going to be a one-time thing. And July, we're celebrating 2 years. And the way that we have supported each other, to the point where I've got to figure out the male version for it. So don't worry. I know there is a male version coming. Trust me. But the way that we think about the 600,000 Black women who are out of work right now, I'm here to tell you, network, get your community. You're probably going to find your next job via a hug or a handshake. I think LinkedIn is a great tool. Do not get me wrong. Indeed, monster.com is apparently back. Yes, you have to do that. But right now, what I'm noticing in the ladies that I lead, it's a handshake and a hug right now. That's probably going to land you that next role. Also, when you network, connection is key. Think about what you can get from that room, and think about what you can give to that room as well. Connection is a two-way street, and I'm learning that, and that's what I'm teaching as we think about First Not Only Network and where we're going. To find out more about First Not Only Network, it is firstnotonly.com. Like I said, we're based here in Atlanta. I am so incredibly proud of these ladies. And if you are looking for anyone, I have a plethora of women that I can tap into. If you have roles open, reach out. I'm Janis Middleton on LinkedIn, Janis. I hope you see that because I was named after Janis Joplin. So that's a good way to remember it. But reach out to me. I have a plethora of women who are really good at their art, their craft, that I would love to share some resumes with you. Thank you very much.
Madam, I have been consistently blown away by every conversation you and I engage with. And I again have to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your stories, what was amazing, what was hard, and the strategies that you use today, as well as, again, opening up your network of amazing women that organizations, individuals may be able to tap into, and ultimately, individuals, yeah, you can just join, period,
Yeah.
point blank.
Can.
And two, I am sure by the caliber of person you are, that the people you bring around you, keep around you, are of the same. So again, thank you so much for being in this place with us, sharing your time, your stories, everything. I encourage everyone, as always, you know where I'm going with this. Click that like if you hadn't done already. Share, comment. What did you find powerful? What's sets in your heart? And as always, I encourage you, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely. Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal with Alex Tremble. I invite you to follow The Executive Appeal wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, your host, Alex Tremble, across all socials or via email for exclusive webinars, courses, and in speaking engagements on continued topics of executive leadership. So until next time, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.